Hi, class. This is your introduction to Chapter 5 in your modules as well as in your textbook. With this overview, I'm going to look at your textbook, Writing from Your Inner Voice. Now, the module in your Canvas will have different activities for you to do and some background information on Hemingway that you do need to take notes when you do this chapter. Please be aware that by the time we've come to this part of the semester, you've learned different skills of annotating, and you've also learned different skills on how to remember what you've read, like using revision notebooks, the different types of note-taking methods, highlighting, annotating, being a active reader versus a passive reader, having note cards, the revision notebooks, all of these things that I've taught this semester with the skills. You need to take those into consideration as well as the Cornell notes. So every page in the module you should be taking the Cornell notes with. Now, as far as the chapter 5 in your book, it's all on fiction. Now, I talk the fiction page is on chapter 5, and it actually starts on page 73. You need to read this thoroughly and know the difference between fiction and nonfiction, which is in the module, in the book, and there's a whole section about reading on it. There's also a section on how to improve your reading skills and some of the things that you can do. You need to take a lot of active measures here in this chapter to learn the different skills to annotate from your book. Also, when we're talking about reading short stories, which is what you're going to be reading in this chapter, you're going to be talking about plot, point of view, character, setting. So the collection of short stories that I have in this book that you are responsible to read, the collection is called Men Without Women. And there are a bunch of short stories. I'll get into the short stories in a minute. But for each of the short stories that you read, you need to take notes on the plot, the point of view, all the different characters, the settings for each of the stories. So you need to go into Canvas, and there are different sections on how to do plot, point of view, character, and setting in Canvas, and how to take notes for that. So you need to do that. And then you need to read each short story. So in the collection. So The Undefeated, In Another Country, Hills Like White Elephants, The Killers, Chitai Dice Patria, After the Rain, 50 Grand, A Simple Inquiry, 10 Indians, A Cannery for One, An Alpine Idol, A Pursuit Race, Today is Friday, Banal Story, Now I Lay Me. These are all the different stories that you're responsible for in this chapter to take notes on and to write about, as well as to identify Hemingway, who he was, and get a little bit more about his story and who he was. So your book has some information as well as your Canvas page. And I do have a picture of me in the book where I actually went to his childhood home, and I got to see, what influenced him as a writer. So his father was a taxidermist, and in a lot of these stories, you will see like dead animals displaced in the house. That's because this house that he lived in had a whole bunch of dead animals all over the house. He makes references to women in a certain way. It has a lot to do with his relationship with his mother. So in this semester, we've talked about education, the world of work, and gender roles so far. And that is all we're going to be talking about. But I want you to apply what you learned from those 3 chapters in these stories and how they come up. So it could be issues with gender roles, or it could be about work and economy, because there's definitely a lot of work related ideas here. Definitely about differences in education level. So as you're reading these stories and you're talking about the plot, the setting, the characters, I also want you to take into consideration what you've learned this semester about the different rhetorical ideas that was presented with education, the world of work, and gender roles, and apply them to the characters and the situations in this story. So also Hemingway's background is also a very important part of this particular group of short stories. So you are responsible for taking notes and reading all of these short stories, as well as responsible for going through all the Canvas pages that have been open for you and participating with those things. So I hope you get a lot out of these short stories the way I have. Hemingway is an interesting character, and his stories have a lot of insight in how we live, and I'm hoping that it will broaden your horizons, and you will be able to apply what you've learned this semester along with these short stories. So enjoy this chapter 5 in Writing from Your Inner Voice, Rhetorical Writing.